For those that print their own photographs, they've probably heard of the term paper DMAX before. Well, paper DMAX is the maximum deepest black a paper and ink combination can produce. In general, the higher the DMAX value, the better. Glossy and satin inkjet papers seem to have a better DMAX potential. What we need to do is try to aim for a DMAX value of 1.6 if we're using matte papers, and probably around 2 if we're using glossy or satin papers. Trying to get a good DMAX is quite essential, especially for black and white, when we want to see that what is known as a rich black amongst the prints that we're about to make. In order to determine the DMAX of some paper, we can actually print a black patch, something that usually has an RGB value of 0. Once we've printed that, we can either measure that patch with an optical device, or if we don't have an optical device, we can use a flatbed scanner. We can then measure the value of that individual black patch, and then we can enter that into this new program called Paper DMAX, which is a plugin for Photoshop. Once we've entered the value that we've measured from the patch into the plugin, it will automatically display the DMAX value for us. And remember what we said earlier on, if we're printing on some glossy or satin based papers, we really want to be aiming for a DMAX of around 2 or higher. If we're printing on matte based papers, a DMAX of about 1.6 is satisfactory, and if we can get a DMAX higher than 1.6 with matte based papers, that's even going to be better, but 1.6 is a good starting point. Unless the black and white image is toned, then the important part are all the different shades of grey that actually make up that image. We've already discussed about the darkest shade of grey, what is known to be DMAX, and how we can measure that and establish whether that's going to be satisfactory for that particular image. But also we need to be looking at all the different shades of grey that fall between this DMAX value and also the colour of the paper that we're printing on. It's these shades of grey that also make up the image as well. Not all papers can produce all the individual shades of grey in such a way that it makes the image look pleasing. What I like to do is I like to print this test target out, which is a series of individual patches. Each one is a 1% increment away from the next. So if we print this, look at it under good lighting conditions, and then we can establish if that type of paper is capable of reproducing all these different shades of grey that fall between the darkest value, which would be our DMAX value, the black, and obviously the lightest shade of grey, which is just off the base paper white colour. I'm going to include this print target with the plugin itself, so if you download the plugin, you'll actually see this target inside of the zip file, which you can then print on your own style of paper, and you can evaluate it just to see how that type of paper responds to all these individual shades of grey that fall between the darkest value, which we know to be DMAX, and obviously the lightest shade of grey, which is just going to be off paper white.